your definition of being has involved presence. For something to be, it must be present. It must be here in the world. It must exist somewhere in the current slice of Cartesian space that we define as the present moment. This definition of being is deeply anchored in Western thought. It goes all the way back to Aristotle. So, for all your life, and nearly 3,000 years of Western history, to be means to be present, and to be present now. As we pointed out before, dependent arising reverses this definition completely. Nothing ever actually gets constituted within Cartesian edges, and being is not cut off in time. Being is not contained inside a sliver of time called now. With dependent arising, nothing ever gets created. We see vast flashing moments of Nikon, of Postbox, or our partner, but no Postbox or partner or coastline ever gets constituted or created. No solid objects of any kind get produced in any phenomenal moment. But what is there in that moment is Kyoryaku, all of being in time. So, instead of being an assembly of solid objects that are present in pre-existing space, world occurs temporally. And this going on does not happen in any sort of pre-existing space or place. There is only Nikon, the phenomenal emergence of now. And each flashing moment of Nikon, each flashing this, expresses all of time and being, Kyoryaku. When you start encountering world in terms of Nikon and Kyoryaku, this encounter is by nature pre-symbolic. You can't fit it into words or divide it up in any way, and you don't need to. You just sort of contemplate it. So yourself does not arise. The reason the self does not arise is because you are not trying to put the encounter into words. Language is the mental structure through which the self emerges. The narrative in your head that is constantly establishing the self and the world that it moves through relies entirely on the world getting translated into symbols and concepts. This is what goes on in the third and fourth skandhas, as each moment of self and world arises. But when you encounter moments as Nikon and Kyoryaku, there is no need to slice and dice this encounter into an environment of artificially isolated objects with a self moving through it. So the self does not arise. Since no isolated self is being generated, the encounter itself is simply a moment of world. So here you have a phenomenal moment of world, but it is not occurring in space, and it is not happening to a person. Vast Kyoryaku is simply arriving as Nikon. Kyoryaku is Dharma, and Nikon is the Dharma position. All of time is flashing into a moment of being. Here's what I want to do next. I want to connect your understanding of Nikon and Kyoryaku with that moment we talked about earlier, that moment of your uncle at the table in the stairwell. You will remember that we were talking about how there is no separation between causal and caused events, that it is only in our heads that the moment in the stairwell is spatially removed from the moment with the 2 coffees. Even though I was trying to describe how that moment in the stairwell is not spatially separated from the moment of the table wobbling under the 2 coffees, I was forced to use spatial words. Time does not have spatial dimensions, but our language is spatial because it reflects the ontology of the extended world that we think we're in. Non-spatial language is hard to come by. So I was forced to say things like the causal event exists within the caused event, or that the event of table is extended in time. I have been forced into using spatial metaphors to describe a temporal event, when the exact thing I was trying to communicate is that there is no spatiality in time, that causal events cannot be separated from caused events, that dependent arising means all causal events are right here, right now, and not somewhere off in the past, that the moment of table in the stairwell is not separated either in time or in being from the moment when you put down the coffees. But now, looking at this moment of coast and sea, you have a non-verbal understanding of how Kyoryaku arrives as Nikon, and how Kyoryaku is Nikon, and Nikon is Kyoryaku. So I can simply say that Uncle in the stairway is Kyoryaku, and the slight wobble of table is Nikon. Get this good and set in your own mind. Don't try to put words on it. If you start looking for Kyoryaku and Nikon arriving all around you, you can get way deeper into dependent arising than you think. You can get way deeper into what is actually going on in each moment of this phenomenal world.